Okay, so before we get into this, let's slow down for a moment. You don't need to explain yourself perfectly here, okay? Just say what's been sitting in your chest. So, what brought you in today? Yeah, so something happened this week with my dad, and it's been sitting in my chest like a brick, you could say. Dad and I went up to my family doctor's office to finally pick up the ADHD medication I was prescribed. We've been trying to get me on ADHD meds for what feels like forever. We tried things like Concerta before, but nothing really worked. So Dad actually drove me across the border into the United States because getting Adderall in Canada has been literally impossible. In that clinic across the border, I sat in the empty, soulless exam room while the doctor went through a 10-minute checklist of impulsive, distracted, losing things, just ticking fucking boxes. The doctor didn't see me. The doctor just categorized me and handed over the diagnosis. But the moment that really fucked me up was not there. It happened after we picked up the meds here at home. Dad and I walked back to his truck after leaving my family doctor. Right? We got in, he shut the door, we both shut the door, and before Dad even turned the ignition, he leaned back and let out this massive breath like he'd been holding for years. Then he said, "This is the happiest moment of my life." And I watched my dad shed a fucking tear when he said that. Picking up my ADHD meds was the happiest moment he's ever had. And I'm sitting there thinking, what the fuck? This is what makes my dad happy? Me being medicated? Me being altered? Me becoming someone other than myself? And now I'm fucking pissed. I feel hatred toward my dad. Because right now, it feels like he's more comfortable with the medicated version of me. The docile, task-focused version. Not the version of me that wants connection, depth, or honesty. Not the real me. And the part that hurts the most is this. It feels like the universe is handing me proof of my deepest fear. That if people really knew who I was, they'd try to fix me instead of loving me. So now I'm asking myself, am I going to take these ADHD meds just to play the good son? Or am I finally going to fight back and be who I actually am? All right, just breathe for a moment, because everything you just shared carries weight. And that weight has been in your chest for years. What I hear is a man who hasn't felt seen. Not by his father, not by the system, and not by the world he grew up in. You didn't want these meds. You didn't chase them. You went through all of this because you were afraid of disappointing your dad. Afraid that if you didn't play along, he'd pull away and confirm your worst fear. That you'd be alone. Of course you're angry. Of course you feel betrayed. Because where you're standing, it felt like your authentic self wasn't enough. And then there's that cold clinic across the border. The checklist, the labels, the lack of curiosity. Anyone would disconnect in that space. You weren't being met as a person. You were being reduced to symptoms. And the moment in the truck, I get why it pierced you. Because from your perspective, it looked like your dad was celebrating the disappearance of who you really are. But here's the shift. Your dad wasn't celebrating you being medicated. He was celebrating relief from his fear. Fear that you'd struggle forever. Fear that he didn't know how to help you. Fear that he was failing as a father to his son. He believes ADHD is a chemical imbalance. He believes that medication restores who you truly are. That's his worldview. And yours is different. You experience meds as numbing, as erasing access to yourself. He experiences them as hope. It's two people, same moment. Completely different meanings. Your pain is valid. Your anger is valid. Your confusion is valid. But the story that you're only lovable when you're fixed, that isn't the truth. What's actually happening is this. You are finally seeing the gap between who you truly are and the version of you your dad tried to create out of fear. And that realization, man, it hurts. But it's also the beginning of you reclaiming your identity. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not a malfunctioning version of normal. You're a man who is only now beginning to understand himself, and by extension, others. And that means letting go. Yeah, that actually makes sense.